In 1941, naval strategists measure the strength of a navy by counting its battleships. The battleship strength of the United States Pacific Fleet is destroyed at Pearl Harbor. Almost unnoticed at the time, none of the burning ships is an aircraft carrier. The American aircraft carriers are on the high seas between Pearl Harbor and Midway. Oh, 8:40 hours, December 7th. Message from Hawaii radio to Guam, Midway, Wake to the Philippines. This is not an exercise. Japan has attacked Pearl Harbor. The Japanese plan of attack calls for simultaneous strikes at Pearl Harbor and the Philippines. Bad weather delays the Philippine strike for 9 hours. The Japanese expect they will have to fight their way into Clark Field, the main Air Force base in the Pacific. The American commanders in the Philippines have been unable to decide on a course of action. The American bombers are on the ground as the Japanese come in. Clark Field lies open, vulnerable. Ten hours after the Pearl Harbor warning, American air power in the Pacific is destroyed on the ground. Now the Japanese perimeter explodes through the Pacific. Without anything but token resistance from the remnants of Allied air power and sea power, the enemy seizes control of the South China Sea, the Sea of Java, and the seas of the East Indies. The Japanese army plunges into Southeast Asia. One after another, supposedly impregnable Allied fortresses fall to the enemy. The British Army surrenders at Singapore. With the fall of Singapore, the Japanese achieve domination of Southeast Asia. Only one battle moves slowly, the battle against the American army in the Philippines. On Bataan, the Japanese pressure is relentless. The Japanese take Manila in January of 1942. The enemy takes Bataan and aims at the last refuge of the Americans, Corregidor, an island in the Bay of Manila. Corregidor is invaded. May 6, 1942, the final surrender of the American army in the Philippines. defeated Americans begin a death march to prison camps. The Japanese Empire has won the war it set out to fight. The Japanese perimeter covers 20 million square miles of the earth. Japan pauses to regroup her forces and to defend Fuji. The Japanese military estimated 1 year to conquer the South Pacific. It has taken only 6 months. A small clique points out that Japan has won everything for which she went to war. It is suggested that Japan offered to negotiate peace with the United States. But the Japanese Navy rules the military, and the Japanese Navy has an inflexible doctrine symbolized by the doors of the Admiral Togo Shrine. Togo, who in 1905 defeated the Russians in one classic naval battle, has left this military axiom: destroy the enemy's fleet in one decisive battle. The commanders of the Imperial Navy argue that the United States Navy must be forced into a last decisive battle. Since the Americans have lost their battleships and since Japan may choose the point at which she will attack, this battle cannot be anything but a victory for Japan. This is the Japanese plan. The objectives are Midway and the destruction of the United States fleet. A later objective is Hawaii. The key to the Hawaiian Islands is Midway. The opening phase will be a surprise attack at Midway, where the Japanese expect only light resistance. The American fleet is expected to steam toward Midway after the Japanese strike. The two fleets will engage in a classic sea battle, and since the Japanese have superiority in battleships and aircraft carriers, the American fleet will be destroyed. The naval cadets at Itajima are told, "We have won the battle so far, but the enemy is not yet beaten. The opponent is still strong. We must meet them in one decisive struggle. You will be called upon. You must prepare yourself." The essence of a surprise attack is secrecy, and Japanese security has been compromised because the Japanese secret codes have been broken by the Americans. All messages sent to the Imperial Japanese fleet are falling into American hands. The successful decoding of the Japanese messages is the greatest intelligence victory of the war. Midway will be prepared. On the basis of the intercepted messages, the United States Pacific Fleet begins to take up defensive positions near Midway. Empire of Japan has not lost a naval battle in 300 years. The Japanese fleet will be at Midway, numerically superior in all classes of ships. But their intelligence is faulty. The Japanese believe the main strength of the American fleet is still in Hawaii or in Australian waters. The Japanese believe their attack on Midway will be a complete surprise. Hidden behind a bad weather front, the Japanese fleet moves to Midway. Midway is prepared as Pearl Harbor was not. Although the Marines are outnumbered, the island is on the alert. The Air Force sends as many B-17s to Midway as the island can handle. A force of 17 heavy bombers is gathered on the island. Within a few hours after the planes arrive, they are ordered into the air to make long-range searches. Although we know the Japanese are coming, we do not know exactly where they are. Early in the morning of June 4th, 1942, the decisive contact is made. Enemy carriers are reported. Enemy planes are seen inbound toward Midway. Japanese bombers cause some damage to shore installations, but the attack does not succeed. If the Japanese are to soften up Midway, they must strike again. Midway is still secure. Admiral Nomura knows he must launch a stronger attack against the island, but if he is to strengthen his attack force, he must use his reserves. The Japanese reserve planes are armed with torpedoes. If they are to attack Midway, bombs must be substituted for torpedoes. The Japanese admiral does not know that the American carriers are in the vicinity. He orders the change from torpedoes to bombs. While the change in weapons is being made, the Japanese carriers are vulnerable to air attack. This is the turning point of the Pacific War. Suddenly, overhead appear the carrier-based planes of the United States Pacific Fleet. Dive bombers penetrate the Japanese fighter screen, penetrate the Japanese anti-aircraft screen, and catch the enemy carriers. 5 minutes after the attack begins, two great Japanese carriers, Akagi and Soryu, lie broken in the water. 5 minutes after the attack begins, American naval aircraft assert their dominance over the surface ships. The orthodox naval doctrine of a battleship war is destroyed by air power. The Imperial fleet gathers for one last effort. On the enemy carrier, Hiryu, are the remnants of Japan's first-line naval pilots. They are told, at all costs and with all sacrifice, attack the American carriers. Meanwhile, the American planes are returning. 2 American torpedo squadrons have been wiped out, and the survivors, low on gasoline, have difficulty finding their ships. The Japanese planes are only a few miles behind the Americans. As the enemy is sighted, the American planes are waved off. The Japanese attack is gallant and persistent. Yorktown is hit. Damage control parties fight to save the ship. Then the Japanese torpedoes come in. The United States will lose the Yorktown, but the Japanese will lose 200 of their best pilots, a blow from which the Japanese Navy will never recover. As suddenly as the attack began, it is over. The surface ships of both fleets have not exchanged one shot. Midway remains American. After Midway, there is no direction the Japanese perimeter can move except to retreat toward Tokyo. After Midway, the airman is the first line of naval attack and the first line of naval defense. After Midway, the airplane and the aircraft carrier control the seas.
As the year turns to 1945, the war in the Pacific reaches its most critical phase. Our fighting men, after years of relentless battle, are now bringing the fight directly to the heart of the enemy. Today we bring you Target Tokyo. This film reveals the awesome power and precision of the United States Army Air Force's B-29 Superfortress, the very aircraft that changed the course of this war. You will witness firsthand the meticulous planning, the daring long-range flights from the Mariana Islands, and the courage of the crews who deliver crippling blows to Japan's war machine. A remarkable fact about this picture: it was made by the very airmen who flew these missions. This is their story, captured in the midst of the conflict, showing the incredible scope of our strategic bombing campaign. It stands as a testament to American ingenuity and the unwavering resolve of our bomber crews. This is a vital record of how victory is being forged high above the Pacific.
This is where it began. Here, in the exact geographic center of the United States. Grand Island, Nebraska. The men were brought here from every corner of the country, and a few corners outside the country. They were a hand-picked American mixture of draftees and West Pointers, of butchers, teachers, and bankers, of your sons, husbands, and fathers. They were men like Kenneth Gibson of Salt Lake City, who served in England at the Far East, who enlisted as a private and was now a full colonel. John Van Trigg of Ottawa, Illinois, and the South Pacific. Gordon Wong of Boise, Idaho, and Canton, China. Fred Montgomery, a B-24 gunner from the Aleutians. Harry Brand, a B-17 flight chief, decorated in the battles of Guadalcanal and Midway. They were men who had flown in forts or liberators in all of the combat theaters. But now they were introduced to a ship that was something else again. She was the B-29, the Superfort, with 2,200 horsepower in each of 4 engines, with a fuel capacity equal to that of a railroad tank car, a tail that climbed 2 stories into the air, a body longer than a Corvette, designed to carry more destruction and carry it higher, faster, farther than any bomber ever built before. And to complete this mission, that's exactly what she was going to have to do. The day they first took up a 29, the men felt like the Wright brothers all over again. Better be good, fella. Here goes $1 million on the wing. By the second flight, they were in love with the ship, and old hands, and starting to get impatient. But the Army told them nothing. Just kept them flying, and kept them wondering. They wondered about when they'd finally be off, which way they'd go, how they'd do, and how long it would be before they'd be on their way home again. Well, while they were wondering, the big wheels decided. Almost the first the men knew about it. It was 5 in the morning and they were on their way. The chaplain gave each of the crews a St. Christopher medal. Christopher's the patron saint of travelers, he explained before he blessed them. And if there's one thing you boys are going to do, it's travel. The chaplain was right. This was the takeoff for one of the greatest mass flights in history. First lap, from Grand Island, 1,321 miles westward, to Matherfield, California. Matherfield was their POAE, Port of Aerial Embarkation. Here the crews had to go through a final production line checkup. Then they were ready for the second lap. From Matherfield to Pearl Harbor, 2,415 miles further west. When they passed over the Golden Gate Bridge, it was like having a door shut in their faces. So long, California. So long, USA. On this first overwater hop, it was the navigators who were on the spot. With all their fancy equipment, their minds still had to make the final calculations. An error of 2 degrees would wind their ship up over nothing but ocean, with empty gas tanks. Diamond Head. Right on the nose. Good old navigator. The crews relaxed. Now they began to think about hula girls and the beach at Waikiki. At Pearl Harbor, however, they found themselves restricted to the airfield. The only hula girls they saw were painted on the doors of the PX. But something much bigger was in the making. In an office on that same field, a new bomber command was being born. The 21st, Brigadier General Haywood Hansel commanding, to include all the planes and all the crews that had left Nebraska. Hansel conferred with Lieutenant General Millard Harmon, General Arnold's deputy for B-29 activities in the Pacific. And the details were set for the 21st Bomber Command's initial strike. After briefing next morning, General Hansel and the men left Hawaii. Their final base was no longer a mystery. 4,000 miles farther west, with only one refueling stop on the way, lay the island of Saipan. Less than 4 months before, it had still been in the hands of the Japanese. That was something for the men to think about. It was for them that the Battle of Saipan was fought, for a base big enough to hold their B-29s. Soldiers, sailors, and Marines paid a price for that base. Afterward, aviation engineers and service groups sweated over it. That, too, was for the B-29. Realizing it made every man anxious to get there, to make Saipan pay off.
Well, the first element of the 21st Bomber Command has arrived. When we've done some more fighting, we'll do some more talking. Thank you.
The crews found Saipan to be a paradise, free from any of the discomforts borne by war-oppressed civilians at home. Plenty of airy apartments, nicely decorated. Adjoining showers. No long lines at the local barber shop. Reasonably priced concerts. Private beach club. And elegant sun deck. Only trouble was, their neighbors got a little noisy. B-29s on Saipan were like artillery pointed at the heart of Japan. The Nips made a desperate attempt to knock the base out. They came over at night, too. They paid admission. But they got some of ours. The Japanese might just as well have tried to stop Niagara Falls. The 21st Bomber Command was ready to hit its first target.
Our target for today is one of 3 of the Nakajima aircraft plants located 11 miles west of Tokyo.
The men had hoped the first one would be Tokyo, and they were delighted. But they weren't kidding themselves. Not even those who'd been over Berlin or Ploiesti or Vienna. London to Berlin and back was 1,000 miles. The Foggia-Ploiesti run, 1,150 miles. The Foggia-Vienna run, 900 miles. But Saipan to Tokyo and back was over 3,000 miles. No land-based planes had ever hit this target before. Crew chiefs and maintenance men worked right through the afternoon and night. The ordnance men fused the payload. Dawn. The coolness reminded them of that other dawn not so long ago in Nebraska. Only now they were sweating. It was kind of funny to think of themselves making history. The lead ship was A-1, Dauntless Dottie. Its pilot was Robert Morgan. Its bombardier, Vince Evans. Remember them? They were the pilot and bombardier who flew 25 missions over Germany in a B-17 called the Memphis Belle. 5 o'clock. Back home, you'd have been turning over for another couple hours sleep, or just coming in from a date. Each superfort carried well over 7,000 gallons of gas, more than 6,000 rounds of ammunition. With their great load of 500-pound general-purpose bombs and incendiaries, they weighed almost 70 tons apiece. should have been falling in Tokyo. This was the final lap of the long mission. Over 10,000 miles, almost halfway around the world, to return a visit that had been paid to Pearl Harbor 3 years before. Pearl Harbor was on their minds now. The 2,000 American dead, Hickam Field in flames, the Arizona and the Oklahoma and the Pennsylvania. There were other things on their minds. There was the triumphant feeling of being the first, the advance guard of a long procession of superforts that would smash Tokyo. There was the grim satisfaction of making the Nipponese High Command eat its words. Tokyo, the Japanese High Command had broadcast, is out of range of land-based American bombers. There was the uncertainty, the fear of the unknown. 1,600 miles lay between them and their target. What kind of a defense would the Japanese put up? How much flak? How accurate? 1,600 miles lay between the target and getting back to Saipan. How many of them would get back? They recalled very clearly the fate of the Doolittle flyers who had crashed in Japan and been captured. Six hours later, through the clouds, they saw it. Fujiyama, ancient symbol of Japan. Here come some modern symbols. Phosphorus bombs and flak. And fighters. Inside a superfort, you can't see its guns. You fire by remote control. But the guns are there. And now, below them is Tokyo. Within a radius of 15 miles of the Imperial Palace live 7 million Japanese. A people we used to think of as small, dainty, polite, concerning themselves only with floral arrangements and rock gardens, and the cultivation of silkworms. But it isn't silkworms, and it isn't imperial palaces these men are looking for. In the suburbs of Tokyo is the huge Nakajima aircraft plant. Well, Bud, what are you waiting for? Of the B-29s that had taken off at dawn, all but 2 got back to Saipan that night. And that's where it ended. The first superfortress mission to Tokyo. But more than an ending, it was a beginning. As the commanding general of the Army Air Forces put it,
no part of the Japanese Empire is now out of our range. No war factory too remote to feel our bombs. The battle for Japan is now underway with full speed ahead.
The Pacific Ocean is a battlefield of infinite distance.
For years, the enemy believed these waters were a shield, a vast moat protecting their homeland from the fires of war. They were wrong. We are witnessing the culmination of the greatest logistical achievement in history, the conquest of the air over Japan. The instrument of this victory is the Boeing B-29 Superfortress, a machine so advanced it renders all previous bombers obsolete. Consider the engineering marvel sitting on the tarmac of Guam, Saipan, and Tinian. This is the first bomber to offer a fully pressurized cabin, allowing crews to operate at 30,000 feet in shirt-sleeve comfort, free from the cumbersome flight suits and oxygen masks required in Europe. Defensive armament has leaped forward as well. Gone are the days of gunners manually wrestling heavy machine guns against the slipstream. The Superfortress utilizes a revolutionary General Electric central fire control system. Gunners sit in sighting blisters using analog computers to remotely direct 5 turrets, tracking enemy fighters with mathematical precision. It is the most complex aircraft ever mass-produced, a $3 billion gamble that paid off. But the bomber is only half the story. To strike the heart of the enemy, these giants must fly 1,500 miles over open water, face the flak and fighters of the mainland, and return. They do not go alone. From the sulfurous rock of Iwo Jima rise the Little Friends, the North American P-51 Mustangs. These are not the short-range interceptors of the early war. Equipped with drop tanks and the legendary Merlin engine, they fly the longest fighter escort missions ever attempted, a round trip of 7 hours or more. It is a grueling test of pilot endurance, sitting in a cramped cockpit for the duration of a transatlantic flight, only to engage in dogfights over Tokyo. The film you are about to see, The Last Bomb, captures this relentless offensive in vivid technicolor. It documents the sheer scale of the 21st Bomber Command under General Curtis LeMay. You will see the coordination of hundreds of aircraft, the precision of the incendiary raids that dismantled the enemy's war industry, and the final, terrible blow that brought an empire to its knees. This is the reality of modern air power, methodical, overwhelming, and unstoppable.
Early in 1945, our B-29s began full-scale operations against Japan. 1,500 miles to targets, and 1,500 miles back, from bases at Saipan, Tinian, and Guam. Here, 21st Bomber Command concentrated its massive air power and planned the ultimate crushing defeat of Japan, down to the last bomb. Here was the beginning of the end of the road to Tokyo. After 6 months of reoccupation, there were few signs of war along the quiet summer shores of Guam. The liberated Chamorros were back in their clean native villages, American citizens again, smiling and friendly, unaware that a miracle had happened around them. A miracle that moved mountains of material, equipment, and supplies across the Pacific, that changed their dirt roads into broad highways, that manicured their jungles into acres of black-topped airfields. And nearby, new communities of American citizens had set up housekeeping with various types of self-service. The latest labor-saving devices, few laundry problems, and no modern inconveniences. By midsummer, 21st Bomber Command was in business. Big business. Under General LeMay's direction, the long arm of Bomber Command began punching the enemy with appalling power. From Guam, Tinian, and Saipan,
600 plane missions increased the bombing weight 100% in 2 months. Behind this expanding power was planning. The LeMay plan began on the ground with maintenance. Assembly line technique cut engine change time from 3 days to less than half a day. In shops and hard stands, ground crews worked day and night during the blitz weeks to keep more B-29s on the line. By July, LeMay's Bomber Command is an efficient, well-oiled, well-drilled machine of destruction. Here's a vital cog of that machine. 11 men and a bomber. While they wind up for action, let's find out where they're going and some of the things they're going to do and why and with what. How do they set up the longest, toughest bomber mission in history? It began about 12 hours ago in the war room at Guam, with General LeMay and his staff receiving a report on tomorrow's weather in Japan. Tomorrow's forecast is typical.
Nagoya, 8/10 cloud above 10,000 feet. In the east, Tokyo area will be 6/10 at 22,000, 3/10 at 14,000 feet, closing up solid after 11 a.m. Osaka and everything west is reported completely socked in.
How will the general solve that one? His B-29s are up against a blank wall except for a possible opening around Tokyo. The old man considers every vital factor and makes his decision. 4 wings will strike Tokyo at 10 o'clock. They'll go in under that weather and bomb at 12,000. Now it's a question of target selection. First priority in the Tokyo area is number 573. Intelligence informs the general that 573 is already 3/4 destroyed. At the moment, number 574, still untouched, would seem more important. Operations checks the tactical plan for 574. General LeMay orders the required changes, okays the target, and commits all executive details to his staff. Operations, with his deputy chief of staff and project officer, goes to work setting up the changes. In that plans folder is a mountain of preparation by special sections of intelligence and operations. 1,000 hours of research. Collated facts and figures have been distilled into Tactical Plan 574.
Aircraft will assemble as briefed with 3 groups of P-51s for escort. Smoke markers at 1-minute intervals will be dropped by lead planes to expedite departure from assembly point. 1 squadron each wing will carry M47 incendiary clusters. Balance of squadrons, 500 and 1,000-pound GP bombs fused a quarter-second nose and tail. Altitude of attack, 12,000 feet. Planes of 314th Wing will carry capacity fuel loads of approximately 7,300 gallons per plane. Calibrated airspeed of 210 miles per hour will be flown by all aircraft on bombing run. Radar landfall 3450 north and 140 east will be the same for all planes to afford a good land-water contrast checkpoint. The Navy is requested to furnish the following facilities for air-sea rescue purposes. 3 surface vessels to proceed to positions X. 4 submarines assigned to lifeguard duties at positions Y. 2 Dumbos to orbit at stations Z. 4 B-29s will orbit as super Dumbos at the following positions.
Each section of the plan is double-checked. To supervise certain aspects of planning, Lieutenant Colonel Catton, a former lead crew pilot, was recently brought over to staff as project officer. This officer's extensive combat experience now helps to iron out operational kinks. He will accompany this mission to observe new smoke signals at assembly point. A field order is now dispatched to the wings. Takeoff time is flashed to the controller, who coordinates the vast network of communications gathered here at the heart and nerve center of command. Here in the control room, status panels and a mission board are maintained to show at a glance the countless up-to-the-minute details of all daily operations. Prior to takeoff, each mission is set up on the board to afford a visual progress of the flight, from takeoff to target and return. Colored yarns, 1 for each wing, are laid out to indicate the flight lines, which pass close to Iwo Jima, the halfway point. and proceed as specified in the field order to the proper target. Other symbols are used to mark air-sea rescue positions. A timetable of statistics for each wing is planned and flown as recorded from hourly reports on the status panel, beginning with takeoff time. Veteran crews, it's just another day's work. One more 1,500-mile haul up and down the ruddy Pacific. 15 hours, 7,000 gallons, 4 engines, 11 guys. Knock wood. A water jump across 20 degrees of the globe. A continent of ocean. Destination, Tokyo. It's like taking off in Mexico for targets in Canada. The 314th is airborne. 145 planes, 1 minute apart, 67 tons each. Those B-29 takeoffs are a tough sweat. That first long moment is the worst. Some swear it takes luck, like a wife's stocking, to beat it. At Tinian, 100 miles north, 2 more B-29 wings prepare for takeoff. 134 aircraft from the 58th wing. 100 more from the 313th wing. At Saipan, a few minutes later, the veteran 73rd wing lines up for takeoff. 153 more bombers are added to the mission striking force. The last B-29 is airborne at 1540. The tower at Saipan relays this information to the controller back at Guam. First and last takeoff times of each wing are recorded here and go to make up the first of a series of tabulated mission reports. Copies of these reports are dispatched to headquarters, Washington, and posted on the control room report board. During that first hour, the B-29s have settled down for the big grind, saving precious gas, cruising 1,000 feet off the water. Ability, experience, confidence ride in each plane. A plan of action for 11 men trained and tested to function as one. The navigator sets the course, logging island checkpoints as they climb past the northern Marianas. Pagan, Assumption, Morgue, the Pohores. After about 4 hours of flight, the bombers pass close to Iwo Jima, the hot rock, a black, gritty pork chop halfway to Honshu. 8 square miles bought and paid for by our Marines. We made some quick changes, cutting away that sulfurous volcanic crust and rolling Iwo's surface into one enormous flat top. 3 big airstrips now launch our P-51s for bomber escort over Japan. General Moore and his staff of 7th Fighter Command run the show and direct all air-sea rescue operations in close collaboration with Bomber Command. A last-minute briefing check, just to make sure today's fighter escort knows all air-sea rescue positions. Out on the line, General Moore's P-51s are warming up for the longest fighter flight on record. Seven hours on one engine, extra belly tanks, extra nerve and stamina in the cockpit. About the time our bomber wings are passing Iwo Jima, the pea shooters are taking off, scheduled to join them 3.5 hours later off the shores of Japan. After a rendezvous at Kita, the P-51s head for assembly point, led by B-29s designated as navigator ships. Farther west, our bomber wings grind ahead on the last lap to the Empire. Reports to the controller back at Guam give their flight position, which is kept up to the hour on the mission board. Still at low altitude, the B-29s are approaching the bad weather belt, where unreported storms and cold fronts appear suddenly across the bomber course.
Pilot to crew, we're going to start our climb. Check oxygen equipment. Tell Buck he better get out to his doghouse.
As they begin their slow climb to altitude, the crews prepare for the vital business ahead. And from now on till they come off target and head home, it's all business. The central fire control system is warmed up. Superhuman brain power at the flick of a switch. Each gunner flexes his sights and tries the coordinated fire controls with a few short bursts to clear the guns. After pushing up to altitude, the bombers arrive close to assembly point. Air in the pressurized cabin is comparable to 8,000 feet, but oxygen masks are adjusted and ready for instant use. From the southeast, our fighter escort appears with its navigator ships, which now turn off to wait for the fighters' return at rally point. The Mustangs climb in formation to take positions above the boxes of B-29s. Lead bombers begin to circle, dropping the new smoke markers for assembly. The project officer observes this part of the tactical plan in action. From various zone positions, the groups separate and form on their lead ships in 9 or 11 plane waves, which head for initial point. The big parade is on. Landfall is picked up, along with the first flak burst from enemy coastal batteries. Fujiyama, the familiar white beacon, marks the turn for initial point. Flak becomes heavier and more accurate.
And now the first Japanese snoopers appear, diving head-on into the formations. Some are suicide fighters trying to ram our bombers. Other Japanese fighters drop phosphorus bombs, set to explode in front of the oncoming B-29s. Our our P-51s go out after them and know they're tangling with experts. The P-51's job is to protect the B-29s, but some of those Japanese fighters filter through and meet the blast of bomber guns.
A tail gunner pleads with a nip fighter to come in a little closer. From the turn at initial point, the tight bomber waves move steadily on and get ready for business. Flak and fighters fall off. But those clouds are beginning to close in, and it looks worse ahead. Then just east of Hachioji, the Tokyo area breaks clear. The bombardiers begin to draw a bead on 574. Their planes sit tight for the bombing run. Here's where we pay off.
Two Japanese aircraft plants and an airdrome 12,000 feet below are about to receive 4,000 tons of destruction. The first waves of B-29s have already found their objective.
Succeeding bomber groups add their devastation to the smoking targets. Tactical Plan 574 is now an accomplished fact. The bombers turn and go downwind, across the burnt acres of Tokyo. Close-up cameras show the scars of those spectacular fire strikes last March. 51 square miles of LeMay treatment. Across the bay, and a tail wind speeds them south, down the Chiba Peninsula. This is fighter country. With the first call on the intercom, our Mustangs peel off and go to work again.
the big bombers homeward bound, our P-51s drop down for strafing runs, concentrating on definite objectives from here to the enemy coast. Skimming along at maximum speed, the fighters pair off and go to work cutting vital Japanese lifelines, blasting away at communications, radio installations, and power lines.
Swooping down on enemy transportation, railroads, marshalling yards, small suburban factories. And airfields. Then on to shipping targets. Freighters, fishermen, trawlers, harbor and coastal craft. Destroyer or lugger, it's the same enemy.
After strafing, our fighters climb back to rally point and the waiting B-29 Navigator planes. With the first sight of Iwo, fuel gauges are down close to empty, but fighter spirits begin to rise. They wind up and finish with a kick, coming past Suribachi at whiplash speed and zoom into their victory rolls. Once over for each Japanese kill.
After the last fighter groups are in, all hands sweat in those first limping B-29s. That runway is a beautiful sight as they let down with engines out, low in gas, or beat up by flak and fighters. In 3 months, nearly 2,000 crippled or gas-shy B-29s havened at Iwo. You can understand why those 4 fanboys bless those Marines and even name their planes after them. The lucky ones are fueled and depart for home bases in an hour. But Iwo still has its hazards. Weather can turn this station into a hopeless daymare. Fog and quick overcast often blacks out the airstrip during these crucial periods. That means orders to bail out. Or with luck, a B-29 might drop in for a copybook ditching. From here you can see how the cloud cover up there smothers the runway, and realize what one pilot went through. Sometimes a battle-scarred bomber staggers back to Iwo, only to flatten out at the last heartbreaking second. By some miracle, the whole crew got away from their stations to safety before 2,000 gallons of flaming gas enveloped them. Firefighters risked their lives to save the ship. This, too, takes courage beyond the line of duty. Far to the south, most of the wings are nearing their bases. Exhausted crews wait out the last endless hour, when time seems to stop. Their position is radioed in, and the controller gets word of the approaching flight. At last, the familiar Arianas appear on the horizon. The bombers fly across Guam and turn into the landing pattern. 15 hours ago, they left the other end of that runway. It's a pleasure to be back. A pleasure to roll on solid, familiar blacktop. It's good to feel the sudden, humid heat, to be among the living, swapping details with the ground crew. Flak, fighters, the close call, the one that got away. But some of those B-29 crews won't be able to talk it over today. 11 men and a bomber that didn't quite make it. Rescue squads tear away the hot metal. Somehow in that burning wreckage, a man has lived to feel those eager, gallant hands. 1 life saved and 10 lost. That's part of today's toll. And there were many other days and nights that took their toll of young American lives in the service of our relentless, expanding air power. By the end of July, our B-29s had all but obliterated the enemy's ability to make war. 1,000-plane missions were going to hit Japan with twice the monthly tonnage that ever fell on Germany. The question was, how much longer would a beaten Japan hold out? In August, we made a test that never was applied to Germany. While great land, sea, and air forces gathered for the last invasion, our B-29s dropped 2 atomic bombs. Which hastened the surrender of Japan and saved untold thousands of American lives. So the mission of our air forces, which began nearly 4 years ago, was accomplished.
In 1941, naval strategists measure the strength of a